The mainline Mario platforming series has quite a wide range to choose from. You got 2D, you got 3D, 8-bit, 16-bit, 64-bit, the list goes on and on. You could also categorize all these games in many different ways, but that's not what I want to talk about today. Each game has much more beyond the actual game itself. Today, I want to talk about ROM hacking. ROM hacking is modifying an existing game in any way, shape, or form, whether it's graphics, gameplay, new level design, or any other element inside the game. ROM hacking is an awesome way to give new life to games people have already played. You probably have played Super Mario Bros., but have you played the hundreds and possibly thousands of hacks made for the game? Stick around, because I'm not going to simply talk about ROM hacks in general. Today, I want to talk about the interest of modifying my favorite, and probably for a lot of you, your favorite Mario game of all time, Super Mario World. Beyond that, I also want to dig down the niche rabbit hole that has spawned out of another niche rabbit hole, speedrunning Super Mario World ROM hacks. Over the past couple decades, many communities have been formed dedicated to just making hacks of different games. Going back to as early as the year 2000, romhacking.com was a notable resource that hosted tons of tools and editors that users could download to make their own hacks. The site would go up and down over the years and also traded between many owners. It ultimately saw its end in 2004, but the torch was picked up pretty quickly, with romhacking.net becoming a new hub for everything ROM hack related. And to this day, it's still one of, if not the biggest resource for ROM hacking. But that's not what I want to talk about. There isn't just a ROM hacking community. There are dedicated communities to hacking specific games as well. And the one that I want to talk about today is SMWCentral.net. Being registered back in 2006, SMW Central has become the one-stop shop for everything involving modifications of Super Mario World. It became a centralized host for anyone looking to upload their own assets of the game. Custom sprites, blocks, programs, game patches, full hacks, and many more started being archived on the site. Within its first year, the site added a forum for users to discuss a wide array of things, but it primarily became an essential way for people in the community to ask and document whatever occurred involving their ROM hacking journey. Over 15 years later, the site has stood the test of time and pretty much looks exactly the same. By 2010, the site reached over 10,000 users, and by the end of 2013, new sections were added for Yoshi's Island and Super Mario 64 ROM hacking. The site may look exactly the same, but the community has grown and changed quite a lot. As of making this, the site has over 50,000 registered users, and the forums are full of a wide array of things. Since 2008, the site's forums have also hosted a wide array of level design contests and showcases. I'd really recommend checking some of these out. A lot of the work done for these gets heavily forgotten about. Now that you are familiar with a major core of Super Mario World ROM hacking, let's get into the actual history. We talked about SMW Central, but the creation of the site is not anywhere close to the first instance of Super Mario World ROM hacking, or Mario hacking in general. While I could go down the entire history of Mario hacking as a whole, what I will say is that Mario ROM hacking can be traced back to as early as 1986, just a year after the original Super Mario Bros. I'll link a really good post by GlitchCat7, which goes more in depth and talks about the history of Kaizo. We're here for Super Mario World in general though, and from what I and many others could find, it seems like Super Mario World ROM hacking can be traced back to as early as 1999, which may surprise quite a few people. Both a Spanish and a Portuguese translation of the game were released by a couple authors. It's not too much, but it's cool to know that before the year 2000, people were already experimenting with editing the game. Nowadays, these hacks really aren't too impressive since they're very simple hex edits of the game, just changing the text and really nothing else, but hey, you gotta start somewhere. The beginning of 2000 seemed to be the same, with a Polish translation being released, but by the end of the year, something quite notable would happen. Going back to 1999, a person by the name Fusoya released a map editor for the Super Famicom RPG Sailor Moon, Another Story. Eventually, entering the beginning of 2000, Fusoya started a new project and wanted to try to make an editor for Super Mario World. Disassembling a bunch of the game's code, they eventually would combine this with a prototype of their previously mentioned Sailor Moon map editor. After a long process of adding in support one by one for different features and developing a proper interface on top of it, Fusoya made history and changed Super Mario World modifications forever. On September 14th, 2000, Fusoya released Lunar Magic, a fully fleshed level editor for Super Mario World. While looking back now, it's very limited versus today. The fact that it was even available for anyone to use on any computer was pretty insane. Approximately 3 weeks later, around October 1st, 2000, Jazz411 made history and to many people's knowledge, published the first proper Super Mario World hack using Lunar Magic. The hack only modifies the first world, and it has very bare bones level design. Has it aged poorly? Most definitely. But is it historic? For sure. By the end of the year, over a dozen different ROM hacks were released, with Lunar Magic getting a few minor revisions in 2000. By the end of the year, hacks were slowly but surely getting more exciting. A couple notable hacks showcased custom graphics, most notably Retro Mario World and Strange Mario World. With Lunar Magic constantly getting updates over the following years, hacks kept getting better and better. By the mid-2000s, Super Mario World hacks were becoming so in-depth that they were pretty much becoming their own full experiences. A few famous examples of this would be the Second Reality Project in 2004, Return to Dinosaur Land in 2006, and probably the most famous hack ever, Kaizo Mario World in 2007. I could say so much about that last title right now, but don't worry, we're definitely going to get back to it. We established the beginning of Mario ROM hacks, we established the beginning of specifically Super Mario World ROM hacks, and we also established the beginnings of some of its communities. So what exactly is next? Well, let me talk about speedrunning. Speedrunning has been relevant in one way or another since the early 2000s, at least when we're talking about the internet. But with Super Mario World ROM hacks being very hit or miss over the years, it's not shocking that speedrunners didn't think or even wanted to run them. On top of the actual hacks across the board being iffy, the ways that they were played back in the day weren't exactly the best either. Most of the hacks were made with the ZSNES emulator in mind, which had versions released between 1997 and 2007. While ZSNES was popular at its peak, it's aged quite poorly over time. Nowadays it's considered one of the worst and least accurate Super Nintendo emulators, and in 2015 it even had an exploit discovered that allows ROMs to execute malicious code just simply from opening it. While this emulator is pretty poor now, back then it was the go-to for most players and hackers, and due to this, many hacks were designed with the emulator's flaws in mind, and this would end up being a bigger issue than originally thought. This right here would become one of the most important things to be released for Super Nintendo owners in the 21st century. And not this specific version, but I think you get my point. Around 2011, the Super EverDrive by Crix would hit the market, and it allowed you to load any Super Nintendo ROM onto your console via an SD card. Was this the first time someone made a flash card for the Super Nintendo? No, not even close. But was it the first time that there was an easy way to use and easily purchase the flash cart for the Super Nintendo? I would say yes. With the rise of flash carts in terms of Super Mario World ROM hacking, one thing was discovered pretty quick. A lot of hacks made specifically for ZSNES around this era ended up being completely broken on both real hardware and really accurate emulators. Over time, ROM hacking tools and utilities would get updated to move past ZSNES and focus on hardware more, but this was for sure a giant roadblock to easily playing any ROM hack on console. I would argue that this is also partially why people didn't speedrun ROM hacks for a while. Could you use an emulator? Sure. But looking at speedrunning as a whole, you'll notice pretty quickly that especially on a higher level, a majority of speedrunners prefer to use real hardware, myself included. Now I'm not going to claim to have 100% found the oldest Super Mario World Rom Hack speedrun ever, but I'm pretty confident that I've found some of the oldest runs. Out of all the research I did, the oldest Super Mario World Rom Hack speedrun I could find was from Virus6110 in 2013. They did speedruns of their own hack as well as a hack called Super Marina World, and while it's pretty cool to go this far back, there really isn't too much to say about these runs outside of the date that they were performed. Every bit of research that you'll do points to 2014 being the proper beginning of this speedrun era, and no matter where you go, it's going to always point to Kaizo Mario World. And for anyone who's been under a rock for the past 15 years, Kaizo Mario World is a notoriously difficult ROM hack made in 2007 by Takamoto, who is a mostly unknown Japanese ROM hacker. This one hack is widely credited as creating the challenging hack genre known as Kaizo. It also felt like one of the only things that YouTubers did Let's Plays of for a really long time. One of the earliest Kaizo speedruns that I could find was a Twitch highlight dated January 27, 2014 by Dram55, who notably had multiple Super Mario World records around the time, and would also become the first person to beat the game in under 10 minutes. Around the exact same time, Jeff W356, who later that year would become the first person to beat Super Mario World without beating Bowser, also did many Kaizo runs. His earliest highlighted run was only 3 days after Dram's. Both these players ran any percent, which involves them getting through the game while beating the least amount of levels. This run has 9 levels in total. Both these runs had 2 very notable skips, the first one being in the ghost house. The intended solution for this section is to enter the pipe with the springboard. You then maneuver your way through the room to enter this door and grab the second springboard. Instead, you can bring this first springboard that you get upwards by bouncing off a Koopa. By getting P-speed in this tiny section, you can get just enough height to precisely drop and jump off the springboard, and if done correctly, gives you just enough height to clear this wall and enter the next door. This allows runners to get to the midway in record time. The second skip is in the 6th level named Dead Sea. These runners took advantage of the fact that in water levels by default, you can actually swim under the level. On top of just skipping the level by swimming under, halfway through, they grab a Koopa and carefully swim under a muncher in order to go under the level even faster. Before the level ends, there are even more munchers that you have to avoid. Any completion of a hack as hard as Kaizo is really impressive, but for a speedrun, there was quite the room for improvement. Both Jeff and Dram's runs were full of deaths, and the times were about to get chopped quite quickly. Dram's oldest highlighted run is a 33:16, and Jeff's oldest time, being published only 3 days after Dram, was 10 minutes faster with a 23:23. Kaizo continued to be a pretty popular ROM hack to go to, and by the end of 2015, ended up having 7 different runners. At this point in time, Dram had gotten the record at the beginning of the year, which was all the way down to a 14:29. Another huge time save occurred in the ghost house. If you grab the midway in the auto-scroller right before, and keep it to the end of the level, you enter the ghost house as Big Mario. This simple fact is huge. Entering the ghost house, if you head left, there's a 1-tile gap that you can duck under, and if you spin jump while ducking as Big Mario in a 1-tile gap, you can clip through the floor. This allows you to skip the entire springboard section, which was previously done, and it gets you to the final boo fight in under 50 seconds if performed quickly. Dram's time would hold up pretty well, and with it being a deathless run, it has only been beaten 3 times over the past 7 years. Calco beat Dram's time twice a year and a half later in 2016, and it took over 5 years to finally be beaten again by SuperBen1755 with the first sub 14 with a 1359. And that is the history of the first heavily speedrun ROM hack, but it's not the only ROM hack to be run in 2014. Mentioned earlier, Return to Dinosaur Land is a full-length hack released in 2006. With 59 exits, many over the years have praised it for feeling like a spiritual successor to Super Mario World. But, opinion warning. This hack is really boring and I really don't get the appeal to it. Fight me. Talking about runs, the earliest runs that I could find of this hack were from December 2014 from authorblues and GarbitheGlitchress. Both these runs are a 100% playthrough of the game, which spans through 7 worlds, and ends up being around an hour and a half. While these runs aren't perfect by any means, authorblues' second time in the category was notably good for a run this early on. The run was obviously practiced a bunch, and a handful of notable skips were used. Throughout the run, the cape power-up and Yoshi are abused to skip different parts of levels. In World 6, there are also 2 notable skips. The first is a clip at the beginning of the level. This is the exact same kind of clip done in the vanilla game, where you dismount a Yoshi and hop back on him as he is right next to a corner. Assuming the game and its subpixels like you, dismounting a second time leads you to clipping out of bounds. This allows you to swim under the entire level and skip everything in it. The second notable skip is used in 2 different levels in the same world as before. Slopes in general in this game are surprisingly easy to clip into. It's really as easy as mashing down and A or B against this slope. It may be easy, but sometimes it can take quite a bit to get just the right timing and faulty collision. authorblues first lost quite a bit of time trying to get this clip originally, but the level is so long and the clip skips a really slow layer 2 section later on that you'll pretty much save time no matter how slowly you do it. A couple levels later, the same clip is done, and saves an equally laughable amount of time. I guess speedrunners have similar opinions to what I said earlier, because over the years, this hack hasn't gotten nearly as much attention as Kaizo, and honestly, I say good. Only 5 players have ran the any percent category, and only 1 other person has ran 100%, Akisto, who funnily enough also had the 100% equivalent record in Super Mario World, where the current record is currently within a second of Akisto's Return to Dinosaur Land time. Coincidence? Yeah. Have you been enjoying this video? Well, guess what? If you're into ROM hacks and speedrunning, I got plenty more of that. On my Twitch for the past few years off and on, I've been streaming a challenge called ROM Hack Rampage, where my goal is to beat every non-Kaizo hack published on SMW Central. And as of making this video, I'm nearly a third of the way done. I even recently did a 24-hour marathon where I was able to beat 24 hacks back to back. And if you want to see more of that, head over to twitch.tv/Storster. And if you really like the video content here today, consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Anyways, let's get on with the video. While a few hacks were run in 2015, I'm pretty confident in saying that 2016 is the true beginning of what would become the more serious era of Super Mario World Rom Hack speedrunning. 2016 may debatably be one of, if not the biggest years in terms of runs, and you're about to see why. I don't even know where to start, but by mid-2016, a wide range of hacks were being run. Super Mario World Remix, Super Demo World, The Legend Continues, Kamek's Island, Janked Up Mario Party, These are just some of the titles to be run around this time. This is what I would like to officially call the normal ROM hack era, and you'll see why I say normal pretty shortly. While I would love to explain every single ROM hack run from here on out, I'm pretty sure this video would be 10 hours long if I continued to do that. The least I can do is share some notable highlights. The first hack I want to talk about is Super Mario World Remix. This was made by the same person who made the smash indie hit Celeste. Super Mario World Remix has 3 main speedrun categories: There's all switches, which requires pressing all 4 colored switches in the game. Then there's 32 exit, which goes through every exit in the hack. And lastly, there's 10 exit, which is the hack's any percent equivalent, and it's the category that I specifically want to talk about more. Entering the second section of the hack, it starts with a level named Gateway. To beat the level, it requires you to unlock all the switch palaces. This ultimately isn't required though. In Super Mario World, you can perform what is called a key jump. If you grab a key and jump, drop it below you mid-jump, and then re-grab the key while jumping off it, you can get extra jump height just by using a key. You can hypothetically do this forever, and there are specific hacks that have been made to test out people's skills. Anyways, instead of grabbing the red and blue switches normally required here, you can simply utilize a key jump to bring the key to the keyhole. Only the yellow switch is pressed since you need blocks to get to the keyhole. This ultimately lowers the required amount of exits down to 10. Ever since this run has been achieved, there have been many theories of how possible a run without switches could be. If done, that would lower the exit count to 7. A tool-assisted run in 2017 proved this to be possible by using a very tight key jump. In a later level that requires at least one switch to be activated, in order to activate a key and keyhole later in the level, the task does something surprisingly different to get around the normal design of the level. Utilizing how broken Yoshi and his tongue is, they use a mushroom to spawn both the key and keyhole on Yoshi's tongue. This is as far as I will go to explain it. Yoshi in Super Mario World is debatably one of the most broken Mario features ever, and I can make a full documentary just on that. I kind of almost have already. Anyways, humans over the years have really wanted to replicate this, but first of all, the second key jump is really unrealistic for humans. The author of the task stated, the task uses a frame-perfect 1-frame Y-tap to drop the key after standing on it. This is done to get a specific key position and velocity that makes clearing this possible at all. To sum it up, good luck ever doing this in a run. Next I want to talk about 2 hacks that are probably my 2 favorite ROM hacks of all time. The first one being, this hack needs a name. Yes, this is the actual name of the hack. Released in 2015. This is a long, fully fleshed out hack, spanning 117 exits. This hack makes a perfect speedrun, because while you can do a run completing every exit, the most popular category has been 12 exit, which is the hack's any percent equivalent, which goes through Star World. Star World has quite a wide array of levels, and honestly, I think it's a pretty fun run, but it can get quite difficult the further you grind. This time has been tossed around quite a bit over the years, with others getting relatively close to the record at different points, and if you're familiar with vanilla Super Mario World, you may be aware of a glitch done in some 11 exit speedruns that involves getting an orb power up in your item box by getting a Yoshi to swallow a chuck. This orb allows you to instantly beat a level when grabbed, due to it being the exact same goal orb used at the end of Sunken Ghost Ship. With some messing around a bit with the hack, an orb setup was actually found in Star World inside this hack. There's yet to be a proper run using this orb setup, and that is mostly due to having to reroute the entire run in terms of power-ups. It's a cool thing to think about, and maybe eventually somebody will be motivated enough to do a proper orb run that completes this run faster than no orb. The second hack I want to quickly mention is Mario's Amazing Adventure. Similar to the previous hack, this is a full-length game with over 100 exits, and also has a way shorter any percent route. In the second level of the game, Molten Volcano, there is a really easy way to get to the secret exit that takes you to Castle 7. After grabbing the midway, this room has a pipe on the right that is blocked off by a gate that only allows you to enter it from the right side. With how the gate was programmed though, you can get through it from either side. The gate only checks to see if Mario is facing left. Runners realize that you could just jump and quickly face the opposite direction while going through the gate. It's really funny that such a minor oversight has completely changed a run. What's also cool to note is that the shortcut to Castle 7 wasn't originally in the hack. Mario's Amazing Adventure had an update released to make it compatible with consoles. This console-compatible update added this warp to make it more enjoyable as a speedrun. Anyways, this hack got a lot of attention between 2016 and 2017, with yours truly being a part of it. Eventually in May 2017, Garby got a low 15-minute time, and that would ultimately sit for a few years. The run was really good, but still had some little mistakes and improvements. Eventually in the beginning of 2017, SMW speedrunner Rickyye would do some runs and snipe the record by a considerable amount, with huge time saves. It was just enough to edge out a sub 15. Sadly, outside of this one run, speedrunning this hack has been pretty dead. There's definitely some other really notable hacks to be released and run around this time, such as Janked Up Mario Party, but like I mentioned earlier, for time's sake, it's probably just best if we move on. Do you remember this thing? The Wii U? Yeah, not a lot of people do nowadays, but let me bring it back for just 1 second, because something that came out on this console permanently shifted the entire ROM hacking community for future years to come. Released in 2015, Super Mario Maker made every child's dream come true, being able to make your own Super Mario levels that could easily be shared with others. Of course, there were already ROM hacks being made with Lunar Magic, but Mario Maker was an official product released by Nintendo. That was really huge, and I have one single name to point to for who started an entire era, and that one name is PangeaPanga. Panga beforehand had been known as a Super Mario World speedrunner, ROM hacker, and tool assister. He notably has released some of the hardest Super Mario World ROM hacks to date, and also at one point had the record in the Zero Exit Credits Warp category. Just 10 days after the release of Super Mario Maker, Panga uploaded Pit of Panga P-Break, and it immediately caught everyone's attention. This debatably started what I like to call the post-Mario Maker Kaizo era. Panga's really hard Mario Maker levels brought a giant new audience to the Kaizo genre as a whole, and that ultimately brought a lot of people specifically to Super Mario World. Of course, a lot of people would play the original Kaizo trilogy, but that's not even close to what would happen within the next year. Some notable Kaizo hacks from this era would be Super Dram World, Super Dram World 2, and Super Foss World, which were made by Panga, as well as Super Panga World, which was a hack dedicated to Panga, and Kurosu Mario World. Just like before, it's really hard to go into specifics for every single run, and that would take forever, but just know that Super Mario Maker boosted Kaizo further into the mainstream, and Kaizo ROM hacks have been a normal mainstay of Mario ROM hack speedrunning ever since. These hacks have had a variety of challenging gameplay, creative level design, and sometimes required background knowledge of how game mechanics and glitches worked. At this point, all the biggest leaderboards were Kaizo. By the end of 2017, the original Kaizo Mario World had 22 runners, Super Dram World had 16, and by this point, none of the normal difficulty ROM hacks had nearly as many runners. This would only be the beginning of the modern Kaizo ROM hack community. While Kaizo would continue to dominate the ROM hack community overall, and still does to this day, I think it's appropriate to take a slight deviation and talk about the rest. Over the past few years, there's been a handful of notable non-Kaizo hacks that multiple runners have run. Let's first talk about some hacks that I briefly mentioned earlier. Super Demo World: The Legend Continues is the third version of the original Super Demo World that Lunar Magic creator Fusoya created. This version of the hack dates to 2003, and starting around late 2015, the hack started getting minor speedrun attention. IsoFrieze first ran the any percent equivalent, 14 exit, in December 2015, and over the next half a year, Freeze set multiple records in different categories. In mid-2017, the hack got a little bit of attention, with London B beating IsoFreeze's 120 exit record by 2.5 hours. This category is the 100% equivalent in the hack, with London setting some records in Super Mario All-Stars and the Lost Levels. It's not too surprising that they were comfortable with a long Mario run. In March 2018, we saw Garby finally take down the No Star World record by a decent amount, and just a few months later, I picked up interest in the hack, and I demolished 14 exit, No Star World, Warpless, and 18 exit No Cape, which is the 90% No Cape equivalent. I will say right now that I have zero interest to ever play or run this hack again, unless some of my records are beaten. I wouldn't say this hack is bad, but there are definitely better hacks to play in current day, and I personally think that a lot of the level design has aged poorly, and it's really not enjoyable at certain points. Think about it, this hack is a legal adult already. Yeah, just look at the levels in 14 exit and tell me if you think it's fun. I guess one cool strategy I can talk about is in World 2, where normally to get a secret keyhole exit you need a P-switch. Instead you grab a hidden key and a springboard, and close to the beginning of the level there's a blocked off section where the keyhole is, and instead of getting the P-switch required, you can position the key above the hole, stand next to it, and with the springboard facing right, kick it up, and if you hold Y or X while letting the springboard come down, the springboard will clip you through the blocks, and if you're carrying the key, it will give you the secret exit. It's definitely not something that everyone will get first try, but it's a pretty cool way to brute force a secret exit. Anyways, if anyone wants to force me to play this again, feel free to beat one of my records, but until then, I'm good. Super Marino World, which we mentioned earlier, has also been beaten a couple times. authorblues beat the time by half a minute, and then LinkDead, being a top Mario runner, destroyed that time by another 5 minutes, and while this hack is a little bit newer than Demo World, I'd say it's similar with its level design being quite questionable at times. Hopefully I'm demonstrating some of that questionable design while I'm speaking. Outside of Kaizo, there's also been a bit of a surge of puzzle hacks over the past few years, and there are a couple notable ones that I want to quickly mention. Mario's Catastrophe is a hack where each level is a single screen that requires the player to figure out how to get the key into the keyhole, and there's quite a wide range in creativity. While I personally never finished this hack, it was fun to mess around with, and if that's your thing, I think you'll have fun with it as well. There's a 24 and 37 exit category, which is any percent and 100%. In total, 9 people have done runs, and I'd recommend playing it even casually if you enjoy puzzles. Continuing that trend, there's also Super Mario Logic. This hack is quite similar to Catastrophe, which features one-screen puzzles. Each level can vary a bit, such as requiring a power-up to be grabbed, needing switches to be activated, or needing to collect a certain amount of coins. I've also casually played this hack, and I can recommend this too. These two hacks are some of the best puzzle experiences to come out of Super Mario World. Alright, now that we got some heavy hitters off the list, let's quickly talk about a few hacks that most people probably won't care about, but warning. If I didn't run these hacks myself, I probably wouldn't care either. Just let me express what I have fun with, dang it. The most notable one on my list is, let's just call it Backwards Mario World. Oh, that's a Kaizo hack now? Reverse Mario World? This was made by IsoFrieze, who besides doing speedruns that I already mentioned in this video, he's also notable for doing a lot for the Super Mario World Rom hacking community and speedrunning community. The biggest creation being the Super Mario World practice cart, which allows speedrunners to practice anything they want in the game, with gradual quality of life updates coming over the years. This hack is pretty self-explanatory. It's vanilla Super Mario World, but completely backwards. You start from Castle 7 and go all the way to Yoshi's Island. To make this work a bit better, the overworld was altered a bit in different sections, and now when you hit a switch in a Switch Palace, the blocks disappear instead of being unlocked. This hack has probably become my favorite speedrun over the years. There's 3 notable speedrun categories: 7 exit, which is any percent, no Star World, which is basically no Star Warps, and 96 exit, which is 100%. In mid-2015, top Super Mario World speedrunners xPaco and LinkDead would run this. LinkDead ultimately set an 8:02 time, being on top. And when I picked up this run, I saw how close that time was to being under 8 minutes, and eventually over time, I made it my goal to not just beat LinkDead's record, but also get the first sub 8 in the hack. The route for the category goes to Valley Fortress, which this hack gives you a Star Warp for beating. Just like the vanilla game, you use Star World to get to Bowser, which is now located in Yoshi's Island. I did my first casual 7-exit run in 2016, but it wasn't until 2018 that I took the run pretty seriously. Entering the year, I was already within 10 seconds of Link Dead. I constantly kept practicing and even tried to come up with new strategies and minor optimizations. While I didn't get my ultimate dream goal, I did in June end up finally taking the record from Link Dead, just being a second faster. I copied a lot of Link Dead strategies, and doing just good enough throughout the run, I clutched out a new record with a low 8:01 time. While I was already happy at that point, I really couldn't stop there. My unoptimized sum of best was a 758, and there was definitely more that could be done. I was constantly grinding the category, and exactly 2 weeks later, with a sum of best nearly 2 seconds faster than before, it was finally time. What was annoying about this run is that 2 major reset points are in the first world. Room 1 of Castle 7 is really tight, and it's pretty tricky to do optimally. The Magic Koopa can also get in your way sometimes. Going past that, Valley Fortress has a kinda hard fast strat at the very end that requires you to first dive bomb on a tiny part of the ceiling to get rid of the dry bones, then quickly stop running and do a duck jump. While duck jumping, you need to quickly scroll right, which requires you to let go of every other button. This scroll is needed to make sure that the crushers up ahead spawn on the screen later. Assuming your jump was short enough and timed correctly in order to maintain P-speed, you lastly need to resume flight and get under the final crushers. Pulling these 2 levels off really well, I was roughly 2 to 3 seconds ahead of Link Dead just leaving the fort. The run continued being awesome, at least for my standards, saving 5 in-game seconds in just the first Star World level. This was easily enough to guarantee a sub 8-minute pace, assuming nothing went wrong going forward. Leaving Star World, I was over 3 seconds ahead, and all that there was left was Bowser. Keeping my goal in mind, I successfully not just smashed mine and Link Dead's records, but I also got the first sub 8-minute time. I don't care how lame this seems to everyone, but this is still one of my happiest speedrun achievements. Sometimes it's fun to grind something that not many people play or take as seriously. And while later in the year, Fitz decided to optimize this run like crazy and get a 754, I'm still happy with what I achieved, and it was a pretty fun ride. Outside of all that, around 2018, 2 new categories were added, all switches and all castles. Pretty self-explanatory names. While I used to have the record in all the other categories, I haven't really ran the hack nearly as much recently, and Venomplay grinded the game like crazy off and on throughout 2020 and 2021, and he took all my times down. But don't worry though, cause someday I do want to beat some, if not all these records again. Since I could go on and on about different hacks that have been briefly run, let me just mention 2 more in the form of little poems. Tsunami Island. There once was a hack made in 2008. Eventually one day, it met its speedrun fate. Sub 10 was the goal. Lime and Storster kept shortening the toll. While Storster was the winner, Kaizo runners said nope, see you later, as we know some skips that make our runs greater. SMW Arcade. While this isn't truly a hack, this was Nintendo's doing way back. Being basically vanilla, this felt like a snack. According to runners who thought this hack smacked. So many categories, we stopped keeping track. Mainly just saving time against vanilla. Some call this whack. Thank you very much. I'm here all night. Only until 8:30, that's my bedtime. So we've tackled the beginnings, the birth of Kaizo, the rise of Kaizo, as well as the other hacks that have existed alongside Kaizo. But we're still missing one thing here, modern Kaizo. While Kaizo blew up like crazy in 2015, I would debate that it's blown up even more over the past couple years. As basically the only person who has approved Super Mario World hacks on speedrun.com for the last 2 years, I can tell you firsthand how many Kaizo hacks have been run. You want to know how much we're talking here? Out of the last 100 hacks that I've approved on speedrun.com, maybe 5 or 6 of them have been normal rated hacks and not Kaizo. Yeah, I'm not joking. That's how much Kaizo has dominated speedruns. If I had to point at hacks that started this more modern era of Kaizo speedrunning, I would maybe first point at Grand Poo World, named after the streamer who's been notable for playing Kaizo in different Mario hacks. There's also another hack called Super Gracie World that a lot of people started running towards the end of 2017. And not too long after that, you also have Learn to Kaizo, which isn't really a Kaizo hack. It's more of a tutorial on how to execute a lot of stuff typically seen in Kaizo hacks, but I feel like this hack alone helped a lot of people get into the genre. After this specific time period, it's gotten so hard to keep track of Kaizo hacks and different speedruns, as there is basically a new hack being run every week, and I'm really not exaggerating here. Anyone right now can join the SMW Rom Hacks speedrun Discord and look at the leaderboard request logs. On average, I'm approving at least one hack, and some weeks it gets busy enough that I can be approving upwards of 5 hacks in a single week. I even approved a hack right before recording this audio, and I wouldn't be shocked if I got another one by the time this was uploaded. Backwards SMW, Quickie World 2, Elephants and Snakes and Crocodiles, Baby Kaizo World, Echo Gare Mario World, Super Moo World, Cute Kaizo World, Shells Retriever. Alright. I need to stop thinking about things that include the words Kaizo and World in it. Let me just sum this up. If my name was Mr. John Wikipedia, then maybe I could sit here all day and go over every single hack and their speedrun in full detail, but sadly, that's not reality. Maybe someday we can have fun diving into specific Kaizo hacks, but until then, I'm just gonna shut this case. I really can't keep up at this point, and during the making of this video project, I have approved at least 10 new Kaizo hacks, and until I can install that Wikipedia microchip, I'm gonna keep it pretty simple for now. Whether it's something really plain or really vanilla, or some of the hardest Kaizo that you can scoop up, ROM hacks as a whole have left their mark on the original games they use, and they've impacted even more niche communities of those specific games. If you are interested in Super Mario World Rom hacking, I have a few resources for you. First, I have the shameless plug of my own Discord server, where I am more than happy to answer any of your questions about ROM hacks, as I have played them way too much over the years. And also, I do live stream a bunch of ROM hacks myself, so if you ever see me live, feel free to talk to me about hacks on there. Half the time I'm probably playing a hack on there. And lastly, 2 more important resources. Number 1. There's an SMW ROM Hacks speedrun Discord, where there are different channels for different hacks, and like mentioned earlier, you can even request hack leaderboards to be approved. I'm most likely going to be the one that approves it. That server isn't the most active, so there's also number 2. If you are more curious about Super Mario World ROM hacks in general, I will also leave SMW Central's server in the description. I also heavily recommend browsing their forums. Anyways, I appreciate anyone that has stuck around long enough to hear this part, and I hope that everyone that is watching this close to release has a great new year. As always, you can follow my Twitch, Twitter, and join my Discord. Thank you so much for watching.